Hi, I'm Anise from Funky Hand, and today I'll be using the Funky Hand download I Heart You to create a very simple Valentine or anniversary card. Okay, we're going to make this really straightforward layered card. It'd be great for Valentine's Day or for sending anniversary cards, and it's great for new crafters, but also the old hands who just want to make something quite simple. So what I'm going to do first of all is explain to you what we've actually used to make this card. So, as I said, it's from the I Heart You Funky Hand download, and what I've used is the digital stamps and sentiments, and I've printed these onto a card for this particular card that I'm creating. There's My Heart Is Yours. And we'll move to that in a little while. We've also used papers 1, which is the hearts, paper 14 from the collection, which is the spots, and paper 17, which is the blank pink squares. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to do is I made this card with a very simple card blank which I bought. It's a 6x6 card blank, and all you need to do is just square 6x6, and all I've done is just using a bone folder, just squared it off. Of course you could use whatever card that you wanted to, but I'm using this just for ease. Now what I'm going to do first of all, and I know some people might think, what on earth is she doing, is I'm going to do a little bit of doodling. And what I'm using in order to draw this doodling line is a Sakura glaze pen, a black one. Now it can be a little bit daunting the first time you ever do something like this, but it can be fun as well, and my attitude really is it doesn't have to be perfect. So all I'm going to do is just very slowly, carefully just go around the edge. I mean, if you wanted to, I suppose you could use a ruler, but that's not really the idea for doodling. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect. I mean, let's remember, we're making handmade cards, and if it's going to be perfect and look like something from the shop, then why not just go and buy it from the shop? This is much more fun for the person who receives it, and also it's fun for the person who's made it, which, to tell you the truth, the most important thing really, because that's what we're here for. We're crafting. So just bear with me for a second. I'm nearly done. I'm just doing it quite close to the edge because obviously we don't want it all too deep in, or else we won't be able to get all the rest of our bits and pieces in. But there we go. I mean, if you don't have any Sakura, if you're a new crafter and you haven't got any Sakura pens, it doesn't matter. You could use a thin felt tip, or you could use even a ballpoint pen. It doesn't matter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop this to one side just so that we can let it dry, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up the sentiment. So the sentiments and the images that you get on the I Heart You download are all on one page, but I only want to use this small one, My Heart Is Yours. So what I'm going to do, very simply, is just cut the item in half. Now I've got my other things for elsewhere. I'm going to cut this, the other one. Make sure you leave plenty of room around each of the images so that you can use them in the future. My Heart Is Yours. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it quite closely. And you see, let's do it this way. I'm afraid my attitude with crafting does tend to be, let's do it by eye. But if you're a little bit more like to know exactly how the sizes of everything, and that's completely okay, you just go ahead and do it how you like. But I'm just cutting my bits. So I have my sentiment nearly done, ready ready for going onto the paper. Okay, we'll pop that aside as well, so don't note that straight away, and we'll get rid of our extras. Okay, the next thing to do is, let's look at on the card. We've got sections that have been cut out of the different papers. Now, here are those sections, and I've pre-cut them just to cut down the time, as you can see. But what they actually are they're 1.5 inches deep and 5.5 inches wide. Now, the reason I've done that is because we have a 6-inch card, and we do actually want to, obviously we've drawn the line around the edge of the card, and we also want to have enough room to be able to put the other paper in and have some gaps. Now, the pink card with spots, we've cut it exactly the same, 1.5 inches deep and 5.5 inches depth. And you can see what I've done is I've marked it with a pencil there, and so what we're going to do is cut it to the right length. Okay, so there we go, and you'll see that all of your pieces of paper, and I've printed on card, but you could print on paper, it's completely up to you, are all the same. So if you laid them all together, one thing to remember is with your hearts, make sure that they're not twisted around. I mean, if you like it better, that's completely up to you, but for this particular card, the way I've designed it was to make sure that the hearts would run on with each other. Okay, so now we've cut our pieces. The next thing to do is we're going to cut the paper that's going to go behind the sentiment. Okay, so we bring our sentiment back, and here's the plain paper on the download, and all I'm going to do, let's get my pencil, is I'm just going to mark, and here I am again, being naughty and doing it by eye, where I'd like. It just needs to be a little larger than your sentiment. So I'm going to cut it very quickly now. Let's get those out of the way. So there you can see. Just to layer it up and just to give it a little bit of lift. Okay, now something that I'm going to do, and it's something that I'm known for, I know, is my trusty old dried up black ink pad. Now, I never throw ink pads away, you can always find things to do with them, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ink around my sentiment. If you very gently, I'm not talking about putting tons and tons of ink on, and especially with dried up ink pads, you're not going to get tons and tons of ink. It just goes round the edge, it finishes off the edges where you've cut, but also, now if I just lay that back down, can you see how it just pops it just a little bit? Okay, just makes it stand out a little from the background. Now what I'm going to do also is I'm going to ink around the edges of the backing of the sentiment, pop them to one side. The next thing what we're going to do is I'm going to actually draw, as you saw in the card that I'm going to make, I'm actually going to do a little bit of doodling around the central panel. Once again with my Sakura black glaze pen, but you could use a felt tip pen as well, and I'm going to do it just so that it matches the outside of our card. When you're a little more experienced with doodling, you may well want to put little curls in, or put fake looking stitching or something like that. I mean, it's never ending, and if you look around on the internet you'll see the most amazing crafters who use doodling on their cards, and it's very, very impressive. So this is just a very, very simple a niece version, because I need to really practice my doodling. Okay, so I'll just put the lid back on so it doesn't dry up. Now I'm just going to let that settle for a little while, just so that it will dry up. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stick the sentiment onto the backing, just so that it's got time to stick down. Now I like to use wet glue, and the reason that I do that is because I'm not very good at positioning my things instantly. So if I use double-sided tape, you can't move it around. So what I tend to do is I tend to pop it on, and then I can move it around so that it's a little bit squarer. Okay, so there we go. That's that laid out, so ready for later on. Okay, now while that's drying, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to stick the panels onto the card. Now the best thing to do when you're sticking on 3 items is obviously you stick on the top first, then the bottom, and then you'll put the second one on, because if you put two on together, if you can imagine, you might not have enough room. So it's much better to do the top and the bottom first, and then the space. Now we already know that there's enough room because it's a 6-inch square card, and we've cut them down to 1.5 inch deep. So we know there's going to be some gaps, but it's just depending on how big those gaps are going to be. So once again, as I've said before, I'm going to use wet glue. I said, oh, that's it. I want my hearts to all face the same way. You see, I haven't got that quite straight, so my wet glue just gives me a little more time just to position it. Okay, and once again, if you're happier using double-sided tape, then obviously please do, do whatever's comfortable to you. But my experience with crafting, I tend not to line things up very well, as I've just done there, as you can see. I mean, if you want it to be absolutely perfect, then obviously you can use a ruler, and I can just push that a little bit closer. But having doodled around the edge, you have sort of like taken away the sharp edge, so you can get away with it being not quite as straight. Okay. And now, what we'll do now is we'll stick the central panel on, because the ink has dried now. Okay. Central panel. Pop it on. As I've said. Once we've done this, the last thing that we need to do is just pop the sentiment on. Now there's lots of different ways you could do that, but on my card I'd used foam pads, but this time I'm just going to pop it down with just some glue. Foam pads will give it a little bit more height, but it really doesn't matter. Just whatever you have available to you at the time. We just want to pop that in the centre and press it down, and there you go. There's your simple Valentine's or anniversary card.